Bonsoir, good evening. Mon nom est Émilie Retailleau, donc je suis conservatrice publique ici au CCA. Donc bienvenue à tous ce soir pour l'ouverture de notre nouvelle exposition avec la forêt with an acre. Je voudrais commencer cet événement en reconnaissant que les peuples autochtones Ganyengehaga, de Ganawage, Ganasadage et Aguasasne ont de longues connexions avec Tiohtià:ke, Munyang, Montréal. Leurs ancêtres, tout comme ceux des communautés Wendat, Anishinaabe et Abénaquis, vivaient sur ces terres bien avant l'arrivée des colons. Aujourd'hui encore, l'île abrite de nombreuses personnes issues des Premières Nations, Inuits et peuples métis. Ces communautés continuent de subir la remise en cause de leurs droits et l'érosion de leur territoire traditionnel provoquée par les mécanismes du colonialisme d'implantation, système qui persiste encore de nos jours. Le CCA étant établi sur des territoires qui n'ont jamais été cédés par leur population autochtone, donc nous reconnaissons les racines coloniales de notre institution et nous nous engageons à favoriser des relations inclusives et positives avec les nations autochtones de Tiohtià:ke, Munyang, Montréal et d'ailleurs. Alors ce soir, nous ouvrons donc cette nouvelle exposition et film documentaire. C'est le 3e et dernier chapitre de la série qui s'appelle Sur le terrain Groundwork. Ce soir, donc, c'est le projet qui suit l'architecte Carla Juaçaba, architecte brésilienne, qui est avec nous ce soir, qui va donc vous présenter son travail. Et en particulier celui qui est présenté dans l'exposition, mais bien sûr au-delà, et sa démarche en fait en tant qu'architecte. Je vais laisser aussi maintenant la parole à Francesco Garotti, sans qui ce projet n'aurait pas pu avoir lieu non plus. Donc il est commissaire de l'exposition avec aussi l'aide de Irene Chin. Et je vais laisser vous présenter donc l'exposition, le film documentaire et la série en tant que telle et la démarche qui a porté ces projets. Je vous remercie.
Merci Émilie. Bonsoir à toutes et à tous. Je suis très heureux de pouvoir présenter ce soir avec la forêt la 3e et dernier chapitre de la série Sur le terrain. Sur le terrain était conçu comme une expérience, je voudrais dire, un voyage de plus d'un an pour raconter 3 histoires, 3 façons d'interroger la relation entre les pratiques de l'architecture et la crise sociale et écologique dramatique que nous vivons actuellement. Et j'aimerais commencer ce soir par remercier tous ceux qui ont travaillé sur la conception et la réalisation de ces longs voyages exploratifs. Toutes les équipes de programmes de conservation de numérique, de production et de projets de scénographie du CCA, entre Sébastien Larivière qui ont conçu la scénographie de toute l'exposition, Camille Lavallée-Prairie qui a travaillé sur les 3 productions cinématographiques, et Irene Chin qui a conçu avec moi les 3 films qui donnaient forme au projet. Et encore, Annette Lux et Lina Grum, les graphistes, Joshua Frank, directeur cinématographique de la série, Iris Ng, directrice de la photographie, et Nora Tennyson qui a travaillé sur le montage du film. Merci bien sûr à Giovanna Borasi qui a cru en ce projet dès le début, et à Madame Lambert pour avoir fondé une institution tournée vers l'expérimentation de nouvelles formes de recherche et qui s'intéresse toujours à la lecture critique des forces qui peuvent former l'environnement bâti contemporain. Et bien sûr, à les 3 protagonistes de la série, à Xu Tian, à le collectif de Biplace et à Carla Juaçaba, qui est ici avec nous ce soir pour raconter l'histoire avec la forêt. But always at the CCA, we start our project with a question. How do we really understand the making of architecture in the age of ecological crisis? So this question is, of course, broad and challenging to answer, but implies several other reflections and considerations. We are living in an age of speculative system designed to favor profit over people. We are living in a moment in which the capacity of the architect to be a real agent shaping space is more and more swallowed up by the dominant logic of neoliberal urbanism and its suffocating speculative rules. We are facing social crisis actually undermining the most basic condition of living, while ecological collapses threaten the existence of a multiplicity of human and non-human beings across territories and geographies. Inevitably question whether or not to build or how to intervene on lands affected by the weight of an extractive history, inequalities, and unstable climate conditions are at the core of architectural thought. But what's the role of the architect in the age of ecological crisis? In the last 10 years, I can say somehow after the stipulation of the Paris Agreement in 2015, within the context of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, conspicuous number of exhibitions, biennials, curatorial projects, tackling issues directly connected with climate change, the values of climate justice have been populating the space of architectural institutions across the world. But we can say that the world of architecture is united to face, raise awareness, and trigger a debate about one of the most problematic issues of our time, and it's working to make it a public concern. But at the CCA, guided by the urgency to understand the structural and fundamental ways that architects are enacting to change in the built environment, we decided to shift our approach to try to understand better. With the Groundwork series, instead of reporting on the results of projects, we decided to try to document design during its nascent stage. Groundwork deliberately observes when idea, rather than buildings, take shape. It seeks to witness conceptual responses to context and conditions, political and economic constraints, cultural and geographical transformations. The detours, the conversation, the tactical shift become revelatory moments to understand new modes of practice and critical ways of engaging with given sites and communities. So what we decide to do is not a report on what has happened already, but following the desire of narrating a series of stories about thinking processes and potential ideas taking shape literally now. To address this key structural question, we decided to engage in dialogue with practices active in very diverse contexts in the world, who are developing methodological approaches aimed to question, subvert, and redefine what it means make space today. The first chapter of the story, what we presented now 1 year ago, there was a project, going across a year, has been following Xu Tiantian to Meizhou Island off the coast of China, where she's creating a set of subtle intervention to mediate between pressure of heritage, tourism, and marine ecology. Then the series has moved to Europe and focusing on the collective of architects and activists B+, based in Berlin, in occasion of the launch of a European citizen initiative intended to shift culture and legislation toward preservation and rehabilitation of existing buildings, offering a way to actively fight forms of inequitable urban speculation. And then the series reveals its last chapter tonight by following Carla Juaçaba to the heart of Minas Gerais in Brazil, where she's developing a set of light pavilions in a coffee field, minimal support structures in a territory where collectives are resisting extractive industrial agriculture. So, as you probably know, the CCA have been concerned about architecture's complicated relationship with the environment since several years. And with this project, we reversed somehow the methodological approach we were used to apply. We decided to meet the architect directly on the ground. So I'm showing you here now some of actually the stills from the previous 2 chapters and some behind the scenes of the work that we've been doing with Carla. So we are in Meizhou Island with Xu Tiantian, actually on the mudland of, in front of Meizhou, exploring, with the engineer of the project, the relationship between the high and the low tide, the different ecosystems on the site, the actual construction or the removal of some parts of existing, elements composing the oyster farms to allow for different types of passage to the site, following the communities and exploring the areas, and discussing and keep, reflecting on the possible intervention. and then moving to Berlin, where we've been following the making of the political campaign of B+ for Ours Europe, 8 months before the voting started to be, somehow spying behind the door discussions about how to make a political campaign, how architects, are trying to make a political campaign in this case, following postering, communication about the issue of demolition, understanding critical sites. This is the Temple of Airport in Berlin, the largest vacant building in Europe. And the real making of, communicating a campaign, saying no to demolition. And then here some behind the scenes of what just happened, in the few months before, before today, before, the construction of this project. We've been following Carla Juaçaba literally on the ground among the coffee plantations in Minas Gerais, with Milena Rodriguez and the team in Sao Paulo, in between the different plantations of coffee and the different plots in Brazil, in Minas Gerais, to the plantation of the eucalyptus trees that Carla has been using for her project. Assessing directly the incredibly kind of a dramatic condition of the drought. We were in Brazil during rainy season, and we didn't see any drop of water for 4 weeks. The dust covering coffee plants for days and days. And the market, the kind of goes crazy in relationship to kind of a climate change and different forms of kind of evolution of the crops. So to be able to follow in the best way the phases through which an idea of a project is taking shape, we decided to use cinema as one of the essential operative tools to understand the flow of thoughts and the ongoing relationship between an author and the site, an author and the community. Joshua Frank, journalist and filmmaker based in Montreal, has been working with us since a year, documenting encounters, meetings, working sessions, site visits, with the 3 offices to assemble 3 very different stories of 3 very different ways of rethinking architecture making today. In the CCA galleries tonight, you will encounter a film shot for a small part in Paris, in France, but most of it in Brazil, across the winter of 2024 and in March 2025. The film has been shot between the small town of Nepomuceno, the coffee plantation of Minas Gerais, and the city of Sao Paulo. Following Carla as she develops a museum and a community space in solidarity with Flor de Café, a collective movement of smallholder farmers. The Arabica coffee plant introduced to Brazil 300 years ago, and through the exploitation of enslaved, then immigrant labor, grew into an industry that takes up 2 million hectares of land today. Centuries of extractive culture have not only devastated the environment, but entrenched social inequalities. Unpredictable and extreme weather events are further threatening livelihoods in the countryside. Despite a brutal history and an even precarious present, there is a movement in the country towards regenerative agriculture and reforestation. So, With an Acre follows Juaçaba specifically on her second site visit to Nepomuceno, as she reconnects with Milena Rodriguez, the founder of the movement, and members of the Flor de Café to redefine her ideas and present the concept to the community. While the film narrates the aspiration for the project from multiple perspectives of the collective, the exhibition you will see in the gallery reflects the ongoing research of the architect. With an Acre is literally the story of Juaçaba's search for an essential set of gestures in solidarity with the movement of agrarian reform and forest conservation. For architecture to provide a scaffold for resilience, as well as symbolic stage of resistance. So I would love now to introduce Carla and leave the word to her for presenting, her practice, her way of thinking, and her projects. So Carla Juaçaba established her practice in Rio de Janeiro in 2000, following an education in architecture that actually was enriched by studies in experimental theater and exhibition design. From this interdisciplinary training, she approached architecture as a delicate choreography of material and restrained staging of open space. Influenced as well by the indigenous philosophers and landscape theorists, Juaçaba conceives of projects as temporary occupations, utilizing a minimum of resources and disturbing the earth as lightly as possible. From most small-scale residential projects to charge a civic commission, notably the Pavilion for Humanidades on Sustainable Development in 2012 for the United Nations, designed actually with the theater director Bielessa, Carla's project can be read as articulation of fundamental language of architecture. Masterful Studies in Economy of Means, a political manifesto for a generation of designers facing intersecting environmental, social, and economic crises. Her work has been exhibited at the Venice Architecture Biennale within the context of the edition curated by the Grafton Architects in 2018, and she's author of one of the Vatican Chapel for the Holy See Pavilion in Venice, which is now part of the Italian heritage and whose model has been recently acquired by the Centre Pompidou in Paris. Juaçaba won the first edition of the International Prize Art Vision Women and Architecture in 2013 and the first prize of Area Architecture Review emerging in 2018. In 2022, she was jury president of the Simon Architecture Prize, organized by the Fundació Mies van der Rohe in Barcelona. She was recently invited by curator Ansuri Corbis to be part of the book Brasilia Interviews and for the CISA talks at Fundação Serralves. She's been lecturing in academic context across the world, and among several at Harvard GSD, GSAP in 2013, and UOV in Venezia between 2014 and 2020. She's been teaching at Architecture Academy in Mendrisio, and she's nominated full professor in 2023. Please join me welcoming on stage Carla Juaçaba.
Bonsoir à tous. I'm very pleased to be here and very thankful to CCA for this invitation and this wonderful opportunity. And thank you for the waiting too, it was a long wait. This trilogy, these three exhibitions are about ideas and dreams, and I think there's absolutely no utopia in these ideas and dreams. Everything is grounded in reality. So I would be I think the word utopia is very strange to use today. You know, there's a lot of urgent things to think. However, the exhibitions are about unexisting works, which is wonderful. I learned with the theater director, Peter Brook, that in his theater, the imagination of the public, not his imagination, the imagination of the public fulfills the image. Nothing is entirely given. So you can imagine things on these three exhibitions of whatever you want. No? Even Flor de Café, there's a project, but you know, there's a project now, but it can change. I do have a problem not only with the idea of permanence in architecture, but with images that will never change. For example, this theater, this cross stays 1 second in the stage, and then he turns the cross and becomes a forest. So the image is there, full of symbolism and changing. This image is in the exhibition. No? This is a fragment of the MST movie where you can see Brazil from the top. I think it's a very beautiful image, and it's an important moment to observe the ground of Brazil from above and therefore understand its history and the present moment. Chão is the name of the movie, means land, ground. This is the title of this movie about landless work movement, MST. Is the most important agro-social movement today, a peaceful organization of around 400,000 families moving around Brazil, searching for land to plant, moving like this in roads, searching for land to plant in a country that concentrates rural property since the colonial time. They occupy unproductive land, set up camps made of black plastic tents, real cities, like this one. Extremely fragile, that easily collapse with the wind. So we do have a history of this fragility also with the indigenous nomad structures that for other reasons are nomad. Now they are nomad because they understand where they understand that they have to move so the land can be restored by itself. So the reasons are different, but the fragility is the same. I'm going to show a project of 2012. made together with the theater director Bielessa. Humanidade Pavilion was a temporary building made with 9,000 square meters of scaffolding for Rio Plus 20, the International Conference of Sustainable Development. It is a design that comes from the observation of a place, in the case of Copacabana, of its events, because if you go to Copacabana any time of the year, there is a scaffolding for volleyball, or for shows, or for this, it is an event for the New Year's Eve, horrible. And that's what I found. And this is one of them. I found this plastic tent with air conditioner inside, supported by continuous scaffolding walls, and with 107 meters of length and 5 meters high, with a platform and this plastic tent with air conditioner inside. And first, there was an invitation to Bia Lessa to do an exhibition design about sustainability in the plastic tent, and she said, I'm not doing an exhibition of sustainability in Copacabana with air conditioner. So she started looking for an architect. She looked for Paulo Mendes. Paulo Mendes was busy, fortunately. And since I worked with her, I asked her if I could do a proposal. And so the idea is to remove the plastic tent, continue this pre-existent fragile scaffolding structure until 25 meters high. The stability of the walls, of course, is the program that gives stability, that is attached to the walls. And this is the final sections. It is exactly like this. There's an auditorium, a small one looking to the sea, and this big one for the events, separating the public because it is for the United Nations. So there was entrances for the United Nations, entrances for the public. It was visited by 200,000 people in 15 days. There was 1 kilometer of line, but everything Copacabana, that's 1 kilometer of line. It's just because it's free. So, I like to show this image because it shows the 7,000 base points of no foundation. That means when this building was dismantled, there was absolutely no traces in the ground. And the material, the sustainability, let's use this word again, is in the material itself, which has been and will be in other buildings. So there is a pre-existent. These corridors already exist. They just extended the walls. And these are the images on the construction, and very funny because it's in the Copacabana is in the core of Rio, and no one knew what's happening because the newspaper didn't want to talk about it for political reasons. And then this thing was just growing there. No one knew what happens, but then they had to announce it was free to enter. No? So then the first day of the opening, people started to know what it is. So this is the picture of Cedric Price. I saw Cedric Price today, but I didn't see this image, but wonderful. Wonderful visit to the archive. The reference is obviously there, and it's impressive how an architecture project that never existed is part of our imagination and of our cultural world. No? The images are similar, but the intentions are very different. I think Cedric Price was inventing at that time this image of the future, this image of the progress that culminated a bit later in the high tech. But we are in a different moment. I think Humanidade Pavilion is an image of the present. Again, no utopia, because it responds to questions of our time. If I explain how it was made, it's almost unbelievable, because as Brazilian, let's do it. So there is no construction technique to follow. So this is a scaffolding building, but it's for people. So there was a crisis in the middle of the building, if this was really going to stand up with so many people. And it was very funny, the answer of the engineer, how come? It's not a problem, it's 7,000 base points. Nothing's going to happen. So they continue. This is a time lapse of this was constructed in 4 months. And it was constructed while we are projecting, which was very crazy and difficult to believe, but it's true. And it was very, very funny, the comments of the public in Copacabana, in the television. Is this a green building? No, it is not a green building. And then another woman said, everything's very beautiful, but when are they going to remove the scaffolding? So the opinions were very, very different and funny. So after this, there was an invitation to do a project in Brasilia, a temporary one. So it didn't happen because the crisis in Brazil began, but there are some ideas about it. No? So the Ministry for All is an imaginary building for Brasilia among this grandiose esplanade of the ministries. So the proposal is to build another ministry next to the cathedral. There's a place there to fit, with the same dimensions of the ministries, the same distance between them, except that it would be made of scaffolding as a temporary building, maybe 4 years of rule one day. And it could be a place of public discussions, like an agora, where one could follow the activities of the ministries without being mediated by media. I mean, I used to say the word utopic, but I don't want. Could be a monument to democracy, very fragile at this moment. No? Just to imagine possibilities. And it's also like a ready-made. No? There's no design in a way. In the design sense, there's absolutely a lack of design, I think. And of course, I have to remember Duchamp and his ready-mades, and the sentence of Duchamp saying that in his ready-mades, he says there's an absence of beauty. But I totally disagree. I think that you cannot make any decision. I mean, even the ready-made city, I think it's beautiful. So even if there's this idea of known design, it's not really true. So again, continuing a little bit these unbuilt works, which is a good exercise. There was another invitation of the Hans Ulrich Obrist. He was going to celebrate the 20 years of the Serpentine, rebuilding the pavilion of Niemeyer. And the pandemic started, so nothing happened. But he called me and said, this is a very provocative question, like, what would you do between Niemeyer and Burle Marx, whatever it is? And I said, and I took a few days, very disturbing days, to respond. And I said I would do the dream, the unrealized dream of Burle Marx, that is a nursery plant, for its maintenance, cultivation, and adaptation of the plants. Because today this park has a very difficult maintenance, because the trees come from different places. There is no nursery, so he dreams with this, no? But the story of the Aterro do Flamengo it's impressive. It's really a story from the 60s of this moment that Brazil was building this image of cultural to show to the world how incredible we are, and it is incredible. But today, I think an action like this, to dismantle a mountain with jets of water, with 200,000 people living in this mountain, and it would be completely unacceptable today. It was a very, very strong a gesture and dismantling part of the city to build a park that in a city there's absolutely no lack of public space. But it's an incredible, beautiful park. This is a thing that we have to understand, that this from that time, I think today we would be very critical, but it is from a time that these modern actions happen. No? So I wouldn't be critical with Burle Marx, of course not, it's an absurd, but it's seen from today. No? This is probably in his house, and I just fragmented this video. There's no resolution at all, but this is his nursery plant in his house that people, it's not in the photographs, it's not in the books, should be, but it's not. It's beautiful, the very spontaneous nursery plant that he did in his backyard. And he's there showing, and at this moment of the movie, he says about his dream of the nursery plant. So, you know, the drawings of Boulamax, they are like tapestries. This is a tapestry, actually. No? So it's like 80 kilometers in the together with Copacabana is 8 kilometers of design. It's a lot of design, but you cannot really see it from above. Only these very special buildings can have the privilege of seeing this graphic thing. So the proposal is to profit of this post. Actually, this posts are part of the heritage because there's such a special and is so immense and is a huge construction that engineering achievements. So it's part of the heritage. So the proposal was to occupy this post and to. This is really not a project yet. No, it's just an idea. So the project is a belvedere where visitors could climb 22 meters high and see the parks from above. The construction is a round of this concrete post, 45 meters high, taking advantage of 60 meters of diameter of illumination. So, as I said, it's not a project; it's just a sketch. No? So it would be probably something else if I would do. This is the Vatican Chapel, made in 2018, invited by the curator Francesco Dalcò at the island San Giorgio Maggiore in Venice. He invited 10 architects to do temporary chapels, which they're not temporary anymore. They're part of the Italian heritage. The chapel is made, so Francesco sent an email, and I didn't respond because I thought it was a spam. So, do you want to do a chapel in Venice? And I didn't answer. Because I don't know him, and this is a spam. And then I took some days. He said they took some days and wrote back again. But are you not going to answer this? And so this is the video. So I couldn't go to the site, and he sent this video to explain the site. And I thought it was very beautiful, the level of abstraction, this life that comes and goes, and this noise of this, this feeling of Venice behind the trees. It was very nice. And so I'm starting with the foundation, because I like this image because it's a foundation of only 12 centimeters under the ground with pieces of concrete just landed there, and it's there. So the 10 chapels, and it's 2 crosses. The cross down is a bench, and the standing cross is the cross. So it's a very synthetic program, a very old program. You go to the chapel and sit to look at the cross. And there are many, this is the model, this is the level of model I do. So there was this question all the time, this is not architecture, this is a sculpture, this is an installation. And I said, no, this is architecture because it's a program. You go there and you sit and look at the cross, it is architecture. And then Soto de Moura resolved this problem for me. He said, of course this is not a sculpture, who sits in a sculpture? So he resolved the problem of years. And so this is 8 by 8 by 8 by 8, and this the surroundings is of course what compose also the nature is the place to contemplate. A few years before this, I did an installation just showing, because I find a very abstract relation between this object and the object chapel. But it's very abstract. It's just lines floating in the air. It's brass beam of 1 by 1 centimeter. And with this installation, I could observe that this thin line could really do a drawing in the space, and this is suspended by the force of the magnets. Nothing is glued, everything is suspended by this force, and there's one only point of equilibrium. So everything there is an apparent tranquility in this object, but there's a high level of entropy, and this effort is never seen in architecture, this entropy. But in this case, I didn't knew that, we don't consider earthquake in Brazil, so there was an earthquake and everything collapsed and broke down on the floor. So isostatic is not from Mexico. So I do this visual association with the chapel, but with a certain distance, of course. This is a storefront art and architecture gallery, and as you know, everything in New York is too much highlighted, too much fashion, too much. So it's too much iconic, no? And so I the first thing I thought with this invitation is to undress this iconic facade and remove. But I didn't knew I was going to find a favela, I didn't know I was going to find this. I thought it was going to be like a Swiss construction inside, but it's not. It was this. It was so beautiful to discover. I think they had a lot of fun to do this, because let's put this piece, and I can imagine. So the idea was to undress the facade and do an installation with the elements of the facade inside. So then I did this gesture of undressing, and the other artist came and took the pieces and make it flow inside the galleries, because José Esparza wants to return to the origin of the gallery, which is art and architecture with no highlighting the artist. So it was like actions. We didn't talk to each other. No talk between me and the artist, and I removed and he did inside. It was very interesting, because it was just about elements that come from the facade to the inside and return to the facade, so there was absolutely no material besides what is there. The name of the artist, Marcelo Cidade, is from São Paulo. And then another, because I do work with installations too, with houses. I'm going to show also, but I'm going to show also this last one, because it's very recent. The series of it's fashion now in São Paulo. When you're going to sell a house, you or you do an exhibition, or you invite someone to do what you want. So I wanted to take this house that is very iconic, brutalist house designed by Sidônio Porto in São Paulo in the 70s, and unfold these mirrors, transforming the space in a, really, as a reference, Ligia Clarke, the neo-concrete object that she moves and manipulates. But this is manipulated over a facade and inside the house. So it's just an installation, but it was interesting, the process with this very young curator, and very nice to do it. I like it very much. In a way, I was seeing this brutalist object as an object, like really as and then removing all the furniture and folding these mirrors around. I was profiting of this geometry, this concrete geometry. So. I will show a couple of houses, because this is part of my life, and also today I have a couple of projects now going on of houses, so it's part of my work, and I never did a house that exceeded 140 square meters, which is not common for the bourgeois life of Brazil. They really exceeds on this, and I think it is for the clients that not really had problems of a budget, but it was more about finding what is necessary for life, and relates with this beautiful nature of Rio. So this is the Santa Teresa one, is in the mountains of Rio. This is the second house I did. It's just also in this forest of Rio, very cheap. They are very cheap. as though, so this is very raw, there's no, layers of anything, and this light that traverses during the day, in this forest that is absurdly beautiful. And 1.5 meters of projected roof to open the windows when it's rain, because I think this is one of the wonderful things in the Atlantic forest, is to feel, to smell. And I remember in my house, it's like, it's raining, so run to close the windows. And I said, no, I'm going to do houses where you really open when it's with the heavy rain, and there's no, like, everything is, so you can profit of this. It's great. So this is the Posse house. This is a drawing. It's too big. Sorry. This drawing is the drawing of a house, but it's the drawing of the foundation. So the foundation, the soil was a hard soil, so I don't need foundation just to make a nivelate, to find a level. And the foundation is a drawing, but the foundations are the wall, and the foundations are the structure that goes on. It's just to show that this idea of these transformations of grounds, it is a design. No? It is our very first design should be how we transform grounds. It needs our last design foundations, but I think there is a gesture. No? This is a house that is under construction for many years because it stopped, and now it's returning to finish the construction. And I'm going to show the Flor de Café. This is the view from this structure that we are proposing. In our trip now to film, I photographed these billboards, which was an inspiration because they're very fragile, they're the only vertical element in the landscape, the only built element on the landscape. So it was the beginning of the project, using both sides to inhabit. But it's made of eucalyptus, which is in the forest, very easy to have. So the idea was to do a very, very inexpensive building. And all the detailing process was to remove complexity, not to give complexity. That means make it as more simple as possible. And that means to have less actions. No? If you complicate, or if you do beautiful junctions of wood, that means work, that means budget, that means energy. No? So I think we have to think about actions when we draw. A drawing is an action. No? It's not an abstraction. So I'm using the reference of the Charbonneau, the Yanomami drawing houses, and the geometry that come of the Flor de Café is inspired of in this both the center empty and the geometry. So as it is in the exhibition, we took very long to find the dimension of this project because it's really Milena dreams like crazy, so I didn't find the dimension of she wants an auditorium, she wants also people to go there and sleep, and then it becomes huge thing. And I said, let's do something smaller, feasible, inexpensive, and then if you want, you continue with these models in other parts, and I don't think she needs. So again, so the thing is that to elevate, so the ground is free, as all the grounds are free in Brazilian architecture, as if you want to remember Mashpi, you remember that Lina, the ground of Mashpi, it's open from the playground to a public manifestation, to a carnival or whatever, and so we understand ground as a free space, and this is part of our of Brazilian culture for sure. And this is a ground also free. We can imagine with no topic, there's nothing happening. We can imagine many workshops in the ground for children. We can imagine a screen of a cinema and an outdoor cinema inside this courtyard. So you imagine what life brings. No? So also, if you remember the USP, it's a USP of Vila Nova Artigas. It's a building. I don't know if I've ever been to another building with no doors. So you enter from any side. It's really this this free ground, no? And that's what we want in this project. So, and I think it's very enclosed, so you have to go out to the terraces to see this beautiful view, but you have the ground. So, and it's built exactly as you saw there. It's made with eucalyptus. The metal is what Minas Gerais produces, metal. And this is the courtyard I'm talking about. I don't think it's grass. I don't like 3D, but but we did 3D of grass. But I think it's more like a sandy or more like a ground as it is in these places to see the view in every border. And these are the details, just to show that this took a very, very long process to just assemble them like this, right? Make it super simple. I'm going to finish with the sentence of the philosopher, indigenous leader, Ayrton Krenak, stepped gently on the ground. And this sentence, I think I always imagine this sentence in each discipline, the interpretation of this, but in architecture is about how this ground and what I was talking about, foundation as the first intervention, and how do you really transform territory as a first concern, as the first thought, first idea. So it's open to imagination. I like this sentence, but it's very beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting, and we've seen a lot of the beautiful project that you made. I have a question that is regarding the use of eucalyptus. Green Desert using eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is non-native to Brazil, so it is an invasive species, and that is like very harmful to biodiversity.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And my question points towards were there any other option in terms of timber that are being able to I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to speak about addressing ecological or crisis within architecture, but is there a reflection that is done about
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally against planting eucalyptus because it dries the soil.
It does.
It takes all the nutrients, but it's there. And to remove it, actually you're doing something good because something else can grow that is not eucalyptus. But yes, totally. It dries everything around. It's all the nutrients. It's super harmful.
Perfect. Yeah, that was my question. I was just wondering if there's any other timber species that are considered as an alternative to using eucalyptus.
But then the timber species would be from. I would never use wood. No, this one I wouldn't defend wood because I don't understand that you have to cut trees that took so long to. But in this case, it's like pleasant, no, to cut eucalyptus.
It can be a positive. Things to do in that, but in agroforestry settings, I mean, it's part of the ecological succession of forests that older trees do fall or die at a certain age. So that's just part of my reflection. Mm-hmm. Working in agroforestry settings, there's specific trees that are planted that are native to specific region that can have multiple benefit to the ecosystem and restore biodiversity. But thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour les présentations. Thank you for the presentation. And I saw the film. So I'm interested in knowing how the approach to agriculture of the local farmers, the collectives of the entrepreneur, your friend, and how does that influence your ideas, your generation of ideas for the museum and the community space?
Yes. Well, I think the project, when I arrived, is already going on for 6 years. The reforestation, the agronomous people working there, they're defending that they should have this green corridor connecting all the properties, so the biodiversity would return with this. So they are working on this. I arrived; the work is going on, you know? And then the project has this. Want to have this fragility, in a way to not have too many foundations, to be in a place that has it's very dry, has nothing today, and the response is also related to the climate that is really tough in the summer. So it's very shaded, but when you want to go out, you go out. When you go to the balconies around. And I think the most successful place, as always it is in Brazil, is this shaded area in the ground, the perimeter. So these elements came and discussed it with Milena, and the 4 units came because of her, because she wants a place for tasting. Everything started with this tasting moment, which is so important for them because it's not only about discovering these different smells and flavors. It's about quotating the quality of the product. So what she did was to give a value to the products. So many generations work in this area and with no value. So now they have a label. They are cooperative. They sell to Germany. They sell to Spain. So everything was there when I arrived, and all these movements. Already 6 years of work, very successful actually, and it's a response to her, to what she wants, and what is this program that she also doesn't know, and also it still can change us because there is a layout there in the drawings, but could not. Can have a layout or not be occupied in many different ways. She wants the school, a museum, this coffee tasting, and the administration area.
Merci beaucoup. Est-ce que vous pourriez nous donner votre définition de l'architecture ou de l'architecte? Can you define your perception of what is an architect, especially when I see this sentence that it obviously at the core of your work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, the sentence is for sure an inspiration, or identify myself with the sentence because I just discovered recently. And with this, how do you land? Really, literally. So this becomes a question. This sentence becomes a question. How do you land? Where? With what material? For what reason? With this material here and there are different. So the responses are different. The responses are diverse. But it's always about this trace also that you leave. That is. So that's why I'm so proud to say, there was 8,000 base points, but no traces in the ground. And this also, the pavilion the pavilion also has just punctual foundations, as you see in the exhibition. So I think if it if it dies, the building, because the building dies, if it dies one day, it will leave only traces. So.
Thank you for the presentation. Just last question, maybe linked to what you just said about permanence. And you said at the beginning that you didn't like the word utopia, and especially when we talk about
today, yes.
And it's funny because utopia, finally, it means no topos. It means that doesn't exist. And finally, it's what you aspire for these places after a few time, to become utopia, in the sense that it won't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So you do want utopia, after, in etymological.
I can imagine that a building without life dies. A building full of life can last years. Now it depends on the life of it that make it happen or not. But yes, I was talking about traces in this. I don't know how many years. I hope it lasts many years. But just because everything is so urgent today. You see this trilogy of work. They are all about reality. It's not about something that should or could exist. It is, but it's grounded on things very, very realistic. So. In this sense, I think there's no time for utopia, it's time for actions. It's urgent to think about reality. So.
I think these are very good words to finish the lecture. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carla, for your presentation.